So you arrive at the zoo with your camera in hand because you have a vision of photographing these big cats like you flew to Africa for the weekend. However, all you get is fences, glass, and a small child picking their nose. Well, stay tuned because I'm going to help you get some of the most epic animal shots that you can get that'll make your friends think you did go on a very expensive safari. Hi, my name is Alexandra and I am the Bucket List Mermaid. I live full-time in an RV and it is my goal to help you live adventurously through your lens. Zoo photography is great. It's like a puzzle and it really forces you to get very creative as a photographer. It's like photography on hard mode. But in this video, I'm going to be sharing the techniques that I use to turn my zoo photos from the average tourist into pure magic. Also, quick disclaimer on this video before I get started is that I went to multiple zoos in order to learn and hone my zoo photography portfolio, and I must say that it is about 80% strategy and 20% luck. For example, I got there exactly at the time that a mother and a baby gorilla were right at the glass. That's not strategy, that's luck. Wildlife, in real life and in the zoo, is often very unpredictable. Sometimes they're hiding, sometimes they're not out, sometimes they just turn their butt towards your camera, and you can't really do anything about it, and I think that's pretty beautiful. So may you have ultimate luck in your zoo photography so that when you do show up with that 80% strategy, you can get some epic photos. So this leads me to my first point. Why is zoo photography so tricky? There it is. Wildlife doesn't pose like a model. You can't say, yes, put your hand here and put your paw here and put your tail that way. Because you're not on some fancy safari, you can't just pull the Jeep around and get, to the other side of it. You unfortunately are very constricted by their habitats. And speaking of their habitats, there are chains, there are fences, there are goopy fingerprints, there are kids, there are crowds, there are weird lights and dark, dim lights, especially with like reptile cages that are really hard to get. And all of that is basically a nightmare for photographers. So let's talk about planning and the best times to get to the zoo. Now, the best advice I can possibly give is be the first one through the gate, even if it's early. Try to beat the school field trips and the kids and the families and try to be the very first one in there. Plus, some animals tend to be more active during this time and the light isn't as harsh. That's another thing that's hard with zoo photography is that if you are out in nature, you can go for golden hour, you can go for blue hour, but here you are constricted to the operating hours of the zoo, which basically means you're shooting in daylight, which for a photographer normally is Another thing I would suggest with planning is to talk to the zookeepers, talk to the staff, talk about and see when the animals are most active, but they will know more about all the photography and all the shots that you can get than anybody that you can ever talk to. Now, also with planning, I would suggest picking a zoo that has more natural and open enclosures. For example, I live in Colorado and I actually photographed both the Denver Zoo and the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo, and the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo was infinitely way better. Most of the major enclosures are open, they're all natural, and the animals were way more active. Now let's talk quickly about gear. Now I am a huge believer that it is about the photographer and not the gear. However, with zoo photography, you might need the gear. I'm so sorry. I'll hold your hand while I say it. Honestly, I really don't think it matters what camera body you have. These are my two cameras. These are both Canon cameras, and I really don't think it matters which camera body you have. It's about the lens. Now here are my two zoom lenses for those exact same cameras. I used this for the Denver Zoo and this for the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. This is a 55 to 200 millimeter lens, and this is 100 to 400. Obviously, this one is a lot cheaper than this one, but which one got the better photos? Yeah, it was this one. That brings me to my point. If you are going to bring one piece of gear, bring a telephoto lens. The longer, the better, because you will be able to get those closer details of the animals. Sometimes you can't get as close as you would with a safari, and sometimes you just need a little bit of help, and trust me, your phone zoom will not accomplish what this bad boy can. I also like this because it means that you can be further away from the animals and you can be out of their space, because our biggest goal here is to not disturb the animals. The best photos comes from subtlety, waiting, and patience, not tapping on the glass, being like, hey, oh, look this way, and then getting all up in their face. Don't be that person, okay? Now you can try out like the polarizing filters and all that. I personally didn't use that. I did use it on the first day at the Denver Zoo, and it did help a little bit with glass reflection, but I didn't notice it a lot. What helped more was like pushing it up to the glass. But another thing that I probably would recommend is something like this. It's like a lens hood. Obviously it might be smaller. This is just just a huge lens. But this just cuts some glare, especially if you are going to be shooting midday. Now let's just talk about the settings that you should maybe start with. Again, this is going to be highly dependent on where you actually are shooting this zoo photography. So this is a good starting point, but don't stay here. Experiment. Now I'm gonna say something a little controversial here that I don't normally say. Normally I'm like, shoot in manual, go for that full control. However, actually zoo photography might be a little easier to actually shoot in other modes depending on what you want. Let me explain. If you shoot in aperture priority mode, you can basically control what is in focus and then what is blurry in the background. So if you have something, let's say like a tree frog, that you really want to just capture that tree frog, if you shoot in aperture priority mode, you can focus on your subject and you can melt all the other distractions. Now, if you have something very quick, like a jaguar going at feeding time, then you can go to shutter priority mode. This is basically how much you want your shutter to open and close. So if you do have a very fast moving subject, you can go to like a 1/1000th of a second and then just experiment, and then it will basically compensate the other settings for you. Now, why I recommend this is that zoo photography is quick. There are crowds, you need to move. You don't really have time to sit there and like be like, oh, I want this. Now you can, for sure, if you do have time and you feel comfortable playing with your settings, that is super fun. But if you are just kind of pointing and shooting, there's a bunch of crowds, there's a bunch of kids, it might be easier just to do a different mode, just this once, just so you can get a nice crisp shot. As always, I would always check your shot afterwards. Use that little zoom in button and just make sure that everything's clear so that you can take another picture if you need to. ISO is the other part of this little golden triangle of photography, and it can be a little tricky. If you are in outdoor enclosure modes, this is less of a big deal because you will have a ton of natural light. You will have no problem keeping that ISO down. However, a lot of zoos have those indoor places, and I did get some good shots in here. However, I did have to bump up the ISO significantly just to compensate for the dark environment. Now, I did go in Lightroom later and I added the denoise, so that did help a lot. However, there was a lot of grain in these photos, so keep that in mind and set your expectations. Now let's also talk about focus, because sometimes these animals can move quick and it can be very hard to know what to focus on. Now, if they are moving, I would do continuous autofocus or whatever the equivalent is with your camera brand. For me, I shoot with Canon, so I did the Servo AI, and that worked very well for me. If they are calm, you could move to single autofocus, but honestly, I just kind of stayed in that continuous mode and didn't have any issues there. I would also encourage you, if you do have a fast moving subject, to shoot in high continuous, like a burst mode. For example, there's a picture of a monkey that I totally missed because I was on single shooting, and the monkey was super fast, and it was like the perfect shot of him swinging across the rope, and I totally missed it because I was too busy just shooting as fast as I could, where I could have just held down the shutter and it could have taken all of them and I could have picked the best one later. The lessons you learn as a photographer. They're very hard lessons. And where should you focus? Repeat after me. The eyes, the eyes, the eyes. Always focus on the eyeballs. That's the life of wildlife photography. So if you don't know where to focus, always choose the eyeball. Now let's quick talk about some composition and storytelling ideas, just in case you need some inspiration for what pictures to take. Again, this is really what's going to separate you from the tourist with their phone and you with a camera. Now, tip number one, try to get eye level with the animal if you can. It really brings it to their perspective, and I like this technique. Another thing that you can do, look for foreground like branches or trees or anything, just to break up the image and just guide the viewer's eye. Another thing, just try to get those clean backgrounds. Sometimes it can just be you stepping or just angling yourself a little different just to get that cleaner background shot. And above all, just tell a story. Try to capture movement and try to tell a story with your photos. For storytelling, I would encourage you to learn the animal's behavior and techniques and then incorporate it into your composition. For example, again, asking the staff, saying, when are the animals active? When can I see a hippo be the most active? And they will 100% know. I would look at a schedule, try to see feeding times, training times. Again, all of the staff should be able to help you out with this. Another thing is just anticipating their movements. There were a lot of patterns that I saw within the animals, so just kind of paying attention to what they're doing and then getting ready, using that burst mode and just clicking whenever they start the movement. Another idea is to get some backlighting or silhouettes. This is especially cool if you are there early or you're the last one to leave. Maybe you can backlight the animal. Those shots are always super cool. Another idea is a slow shutter or a motion blur. This happens usually around 1/30th to 1/60th of a second. second. And this is especially cool if there's any water or movement going on within the habitat. Like if the animal is stationary, but then you can get that long flowing waterfall. Another technique that is super cool for fast moving animals is panning. This is basically when you put your shutter speed to around 1/30th to around 1/25th of a second. You would pan with the animal and then you would click so that the animal is in focus, but the background is blurry. These techniques take practice, so please be patient and don't be afraid to experiment. And I know we have all of those compositional rules like the rule of thirds and leading lines and all that jazz, but if it is your artistic vision, don't be afraid to break those too. Okay, now let's get into the fun stuff, which is handling the glass, the bars, and the crowds. Now, as far as glass reflections, what really helped me was just trying to get different angles. As I said, it might just be you just shifting just slightly. Another thing that you can do is put your lens right up to the glass. I don't have one, but I've read that there are actually like some rubber lens hoods, and this would drastically help because you could just stick your lens right up onto the glass. Another trick is don't wear white because white tends to reflect the glass, and if you're wearing black, then you will blend in a little bit and you won't see a big huge version of yourself in with the picture of the jaguar. If it is allowed and you get permission, sometimes they will let you kind of like clean the glass of the fingerprints, but always ask for permission first. Now, as far as the bars, sometimes you can actually, if you have a long lens and a wide aperture, sometimes you can shoot it where the bars actually disappear. They will be in there a little bit, they will be blurry, but you can see from this photo right here, I actually took this through the bars. So sometimes you can get it, sometimes you can't. You just have to be a little flexible. Again, try to push your lens as close as you can just up to those bars, maybe so you can try to get them out a little bit. Another thing you could do is you could also switch to manual focus. This actually was sometimes my only option. Again, on this huge lens, my arms were killing me, but I would switch to manual focus. I would focus in on the animal, and then I would actually switch it back to autofocus and use the back button focus to really focus in on the animal, and that did work, but it was really hard. It was really hard. But you could definitely try switching off the autofocus and then using the single point focus on the animal to try to blur out those fences. And again, just some zoo tips. We kind of touched on this before, but I just want to make sure that it gets in your brain because there's nothing more frustrating than trying to like photograph a bird and it's not looking at you and you're just like, come on, turn to me, or you start whistling or something. Just don't do that. I know it's tempting. It was even tempting for me, and I am like a very big sustainability girl. The more quieter you are, the more natural the behavior will be. So anyway, just be respectful. Don't tap on the glass. Don't yell at the animals. Always follow the zoo rules and just treat these animals with respect. I'm not sure how I really feel about zoos in general. I definitely preferred a safari, but sometimes this is all you got. I would choose a zoo that is really good to their animals. I would probably only support zoos that, let them do their own thing. They have very large enclosures. They're researching. They, just like don't pick a zoo that treats their animals like crap. Sorry, it's over. I just had to say it. No one likes a picture of a sad lion, and you can tell. You can really tell. And now that you have all of your beautiful zoo photos, let's quick talk about editing because I'm kind of an editing nerd. Now, since you will be taking a lot of photos with burst mode, it is very important to go through all of your photos and learn how to cull your photos just so that you can pick the best ones. With this, I normally start with a group of them. I see which ones are in focus. If they're not in focus, they go straight into the trash. If they are in focus, I'll just look at them together and just kind of use my best judgment on which one I like better. Once you have all of your photos, you can start putting them into Lightroom. This is what I use to do some magic on my photos. Now, these take time because a lot of times you can actually go through with the spot remove tool. You can very, very carefully maybe take out some of those fences, take out some of the glass reflections. So I would start there, crop it how you want it, and then you can start playing with the fun stuff like your contrast, your exposure, your shadows, your lights, and whatever your artistic vision is. One thing that I do really like to do with my wildlife photography is I like to use the masking tool, and I will actually take the brush or the object filter and I will highlight the eyes, and I will actually just slightly, just not too much, but slightly bring up the exposure and the contrast of the eyes just to make them pop. Because as I said, you're focusing on the eyes, that's where the viewer's eye goes, and that's what makes the photograph beautiful. Another thing that I found myself doing a lot with these editing and these zoo and wildlife photos is I would actually separate the subject from the background. So I would take a mask, I would, do the subject, and I would maybe increase the exposure, increase the clarity and everything on the subject just to make them pop. And then I would go to the background and I would significantly decrease the exposure just so that I can make the subject pop. Because or else sometimes they kind of blend in to the enclosure, and that's not what you want. You want the animal to be the star of the show like it deserves. And if you don't want to do all that and you want to spend more time adventuring and less time editing, I do have an editing service. I also have a custom preset service. This is where I go in, I analyze your brand, and I give you a good starting point so that you can just pop your photos in, do some minor tweaks, and it saves you so much time. Or if you want your photos to look more like mine, very flattered, I do have my presets for sale as well. There is no doubt about it, zoo photography is tricky. I was challenged to the brim here, but that's also what makes it fun as a photographer and for your creativity. So go out and try these tricks, and I also want to know how your photos actually turned out. Feel free to comment or send me a DM with your photos. I want to see all of your wildlife photos. I'm so down for it. And if these tips and tricks did help you, it would mean the world to this traveling and adventuring mermaid if you would just hit that like and subscribe button so that I can keep bringing you free adventure photography content. Don't forget to check the description below because I will be putting a ton of resources, including the full guide that has way more information than this, just so that you can be fully supported in your zoo and wildlife photography journey. So dive in, experiment, and make those zoo shots feel wild. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you next time, and here's to living adventurously through your lens.